Yeah. So hi Shruti, welcome to the third episode of the chat series. Because I started this series in like five months ago, and I had done a couple of chat series where I invite my friends, my colleagues who is associated with the every sector or like otherwise also, and to have uh, you know understanding of their work and their interest, their life, their motivation, their plans. So it is not a very formal setup, I would say. It is just to have a conversation, because what I feel that key lot of us in disability sector and disability community, we don't talk to each other often, and we don't have content in online where people can see and even explore our journeys. So the whole motive of Project Samaj is to give people platform and have an open platform, and they can talk freely and without feeling that key they should be fitting into a structure or something like that. So yeah. So before starting, I would say that it is a very natural kind of structure I am following, and so I'll just like give it to you how you want to start with, because you can start with your like childhood or anything. Yeah, basic introduction actually. Yeah, to
Right,
you.
Mahavir. Thank you so much for inviting me to your chat series. We have a lot of chats in my stint with you in office as well, and this is probably one of them, a little more informative maybe. So,
Yeah.
hello, I am, as you know, Shruti Bhartia, originally from a small town 20 kilometers from Kolkata, currently based out of Bangalore, looking forward to understand various cities through my career journey. I am an economist by education and into data because of my profession, and very
Mm.
much interested in understanding various kind of disabilities. Now, I am not just interested in disabilities because I am a person with visual impairment. I am someone who has been dealing with vision loss for the past 10 years, and I'm a late blind person, but also because as an economist, it is an area of interest to understand where and how development is needed. And it has been a pleasure knowing you and learning things from you in office so far. So that is how my journey has been. And Project Summers, I came into touch with it a few days back, and I am loving it. I'm learning a lot through it.
So let me again. Okay. So how was your like? How's your family? How was your family background like when you like started, and how was your schooling days? To start from the beginning itself.
Right. So, as you know, this one would touch the disability point of view. So, I was diagnosed with my visual impairment in it to 2015, round about 2015. Like there were traces of it in 2013 as well, but not enough for us to understand how serious might it get. So, you can say I had a fairly normal childhood.
Yeah.
I ha- um, I went to a regular school. I was an introvert, so I did not socialize a lot. My parents were happy because I was performing well in school, but I was poor in sports. For that, my health might be a reason. Maybe my disability that was building up might be a reason, because I remember vaguely like we were playing throw ball and I tried to catch that ball, but that did not happen. And once more, like the teacher was trying to pass a cricket ball on to me, but I could just not understand where the ball was coming from. So that might be because extremely bad hand eye coordination or
Mm.
extremely bad eyesight. And then I had some blue green color confusion as well, which later on morphed into uh, further color recognizing difficulties. So that was what my childhood was. I was very fond of books. I am still very fond of books. I am found reading suspense and murder mysteries half of the time. And yeah, I was a total nerd, you can say. Total nerd. Always looking after which will be my next read. So that was how it was. I would say that adulthood has actually helped me in exploring other areas apart from books.
Yeah. So, um, like moving ahead, I would like to know how, for example, when your disability came into focus, so what was the age like when you got diagnosed with disability or something like that?
Hmm. So I was kind of diagnosed properly. Like I came face to face with my disability at the age of 18. And my reason for being diagnosed was that I had cleared some state level medical entrance exams. And then it came out that I am going to lose my vision eventually. So I have a condition, retinal condition, wherein what happens, your vision slowly shrinks and then gradually there's no more vision left. So back then I had 85% of vision. Right now I have just 5 or 10% left. So when it came, the bigger shock that was present, Mahavir, was that I had to choose a different stream because I did not know how to figure out a career path within the medical field itself because my parents are from a non-medical background. They are, you can say, businessmen or accountants, simple businessmen or accountants. My mother is a housewife. So we did not know what to do.
Hmm.
My I did not have a hard time processing my vision loss as much. I had a
Hmm.
harder time processing my change of careers more because
Hmm.
I took up economics. Economics was a one night decision,
Hmm.
and I found it hard to like because my subjects were, what do you say, standard PCMB, but PCMB was unlike a lot of other people. It was not enforced on me. It was a completely choice based thing. So to
Hmm.
change to economics, I started looking for the PCMB signs. So for example, I looked for physics in statistics. I looked for mathematics in mathematics. We had mathematics as a subject. And within economics, I looked for other subjects. So 2.5 years, I went into depression because multiple reasons. I was flunking in college because I was losing eyesight. My papers were going blank. I could not see them anymore. And I was coming to terms with my eyesight. So that was how my initial years were. It was also followed by a lot of Googling up on the internet, like what do blind people do, how they adjust. My primary concern, as you know, so I told you, right, I love reading books. It was how will I read books in this future? It used to roam in my head. If I can anyhow read books, then I can live up to 80 with or without eyesight, not a problem. So that was how it was.
Yeah. So, okay. So how, मतलब कि why you got interested in economics? Because tell me about that.
So what happened? I, apart from interacting with people in my class, I used to interact with people in commerce as well, like commerce and humanities as well. So they had told me that economics is a very lucrative subject and it's fairly interesting. Then what happened? A relative of mine had to change from chemistry to economics at one point of time. She was my sister-in-law, so she had to change from chemistry to economics, and she told that she loved it. So, economics is a subject which is gaining traction these days, and you can take up economics. So, since I had very limited awareness about sight loss and what you can do when you're having sight loss, all I could understand was I would have to change from science to commerce. And I did not want to change into something hardcore commerce, like learn accounting and everything. At one point, I had a choice that I would have to repeat my 11th and 12th, so that with commerce, so that I can read up again and then maybe change my stream. So within this, I realized that with science also you can take up economics. So what happened? I was pursuing botany at a college, and I was pursuing it because that year the medical entrance exams got delayed. So I was waiting for my result, and I had a backup that if this year does not go through, I'll pursue botany and parallelly I'll sit for the exams again.
Hmm.
And within that college itself, economics was also going on, and I had all the required qualifications, the scores that were needed. I was in fact above, quite a good score I had. So that
Yeah.
allowed me to change into economics, and the principal were really really kind. They My father explained my condition to them. He told them that she might not be able to pursue botany work with microscopes because she's having this issue or challenge. And they put my name into the third counseling for economics, and then I ended up taking economics. Post that, it took me like mathematics and statistics were easy to like. Economics took some time for me to like, but then slowly and steadily I had come across technologies like color inversion, reading through it. Just a minute, huh? I think my battery is running low. Just a minute. So sorry. Right. So after that, what happened? I started reading some books on economics. So I used to love Raghuram Rajan. So I started listening to him, and I read a couple of books about him. Then I was also with a friend who was very much interested in economics and was not from an economics background. So he would recommend a lot of books to me, and that kind of spearheaded my interest into economics. So by the time I took up masters, statistics was one thing that got me heavily interested, and these books on economics, they started pushing me that okay. So I'm the kind of person who needs to like something before she takes something up. So I built on building a liking for economics.
Hmm.
So once you realize no that economics is not just money, you realize Amartya Sen's concepts of welfare economics. You start loving economics, even if you are not like I want to earn this much and all. Even if you are not of that opinion, you start liking economics because you realize there is some change that can be brought about through this subject.
Yeah. And so my question is that okay, talking about economics, generally people go into, like, for example, you had because now you are into a space where it is much more, like data oriented things like that, but some people actually prefer in a more like what I would say that they go into the qualitative aspect of it. So what was your like motivation to choose a like more number oriented or like data oriented
So
training, like
as I said,
Python and all?
no,
Yeah.
my interest was always there in statistics. I used to love statistics more than economics. When
Yeah.
I was pursuing economics as well, I realized that I might have chosen a bachelor's in statistics instead of a bachelor's in economics. So I was always interested in the math of it. The math was actually what built an interest for me in economics. So that was
Mm.
one thing. Second thing was during our placement sessions in uh, masters, we are required to learn Python. We had R as a subject as well. So we are required to learn Python, and we work on projects for that reason. So for example, we have econometrics, so we work on SPSS, we work on stata, we work on these things. And Python, alongside all of that, I learned Python parallelly. So that is how I started, like, in that data driven direction. So
Hmm.
we even had we me and my class representative even discussed once that since my college does not have subscription to a lot of data platforms, instead of protesting about a lot of other things that used to happen,
Hmm.
we could actually sit on a protest for getting better data sources, because economics requires data to come up with an insight.
Hmm. And okay, talking about the larger space of like economics. So, what is the like school of thought you like subscribe to? Because we had this interaction like personally also. Like a lot of people talk about going to the market or like giving the state intervention in that thing. So, what is your opinion in that case? The
The middle
what
ground.
should be the role of the state and the market actually?
So the market should be present because profit is what incentivizes people to keep on doing better. So that
Yeah.
is what will bring in the money. But government intervention is required in places like health, education, senior citizen care, these things. So
Hmm.
that for that we need a benevolent government as well. So that is what my approach is. I believe it. So as you clarified, I am centrist. I guess that is the word that you used.
Hmm. And like a lot of people, in especially like arts, because I was in like this and all. I figured out a lot of people actually do have social concerns, like, and they are good in like articulating that thing in a more creative way than even protesting. But when it comes to policy making, sometimes it requires the hard work of and doing the boring work of you know for, first of all documenting those things and explaining that to the policymaker. So how do you see that thing? Because I've seen that a lot of the time is being like uh, wasted on things which are unproductive in social space. But you took a very like different line on that. Even though like I know you're very much into the centrist part, but how do you see that phenomenon? People like just not being able to like innovate their ways of engaging with the government or like engaging with or like articulating their point of view in a more like rational way, in a more data driven way kind of. What is the gap you feel?
I feel when we start articulating things that are backed by data, the bigger problem is that we tend to be more technical and we forget what the target audience knows. So, our first approach should be in understanding our target audience. And this is not just true for policy, this is true for any profession. You will not be just interacting with people who are experts in your field, you'll be interacting with people who are from multiple disciplines. So you should
Hmm.
have the ability that you can, whatever your data is speaking or your profession is speaking or your education is trying to speak. This is also said by Dr. Raghuram Rajan as well, that things need to be put forward to the masses in a way that they can understand. That is
Yeah.
one thing that is needed. Second thing, obviously, policy, in making one policy, it takes a lot of time because a lot of red tapeism is present, and that usually delays things. I think people who come from the social sector, they are good with interacting and pushing things that way. because
mm,
I am the kind of person who would just come up in front, who just bring in your insights, and then just put it forward and be like, you have to kind of, we will discuss, deliberate, and then probably accept it. But I try my best not to stray away from the point. So if you are with me, there won't be that many, what do you call it, dinners, interactions, and those things. There will be a lot of work, but less play.
correct. I understand that. See, again, different people choose a different like pathways, and they have their own strength and weaknesses in that way. So yeah, it's very important to engage with various kind of people, because I find myself in the middle actually, because even though I like the community engagement and this thing, but what I feel that is sometimes it gets too much trained into a uh, domain where you can't structure or you can't organize in a proper way.
I
And
have been like very new to the community, and I'm seeing the ways in which things work out here.
yeah, and
So,
yeah, like you said, key people who are coming from like corporate, or like for example you are having a considerable experience in that, they do lack some sort of community engagement, or sometimes because obviously I'm not blaming them, but sometimes it is like because they come from a very structured thing,
yes,
and sometimes it is
yes,
very difficult
yes.
for them to cope up with the you know what to say.
Even in our support groups, I used to observe like the person who
Yeah.
heads that support group, since he has an experience into the social sector, he does that, community building and community based approach. He's very good at it, which I found was very lacking in me before I entered into a non-governmental based setup. But now that I see it, I do feel that eventually I might be able to learn ways of engaging the community and everything, which I find really fascinating.
Hmm. Because so you have been like in like how many 4 years in the corporate,
Yeah.
and like, I would say, so what was your experience like? What, do you feel like connected to their vision, or sometimes you feel that something needs to be added more?
um,
How it can?
Connected, you have to align yourself with the vision of the corporate if you are working with over there. So usually corporates have a vision of, like, for example, delivering quality work, and down to the smallest detail, like which is even a comma. They corporates very often say that they are committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, but obviously that part is still a work in progress. So within my experience, for example, I found it very hard to get projects. So
Mm,
since I was a part of a consulting organization, and consulting
mm,
requires you to extensively network, right? And since
yeah.
I'm a person with visual impairment, it is I can still network within closed setup, closed groups. But when it comes to a very large group, going to them and explicitly talking to them becomes very difficult for me. That
Mm,
was one, and that plays a very crucial role in getting a project. Apart from that, since they have a little limited awareness about how a visually impaired person, a person with visual impairment works, for example, how screen readers work, how you have to, for example, articulate things instead of showing things on screen, because a lot of things goes over screen share and everything. A lot of hesitation was present within the organization, and you have to yourself take up, you have to basically set up a process that, okay, this is how I work, and you have to articulate it to them. You have to organize sessions like, if you are working with me, this is how we will work. So the entire initiative of how you will work, how to work with me, what I want, everything needs to set up by you, in
mm,
contrast to other people who kind of slowly can figure out things. You need to have things figured out when you are in
mm,
corporate and when you are a person with disability.
yeah. So yeah, obviously that is a feedback I get from a lot of people from corporate, because it is much more specific, and they're like much more goal oriented than having a space for accommodation to that extent. Yeah, and we are seeing that post Donald Trump, things are changing very rapidly in terms of policies and having HR policies. So, so this is
Um,
something we need to also balance and see how things pan out. Um, okay, talking about the things which interest you, like for example, other than the academia, what are the things like you obviously like you were interested in books and so what is the things which do to like
um,
basically um, like other than the career thing and the yeah
so I am interested in for one. I'm not sure if this is an area of interest. I have been
yeah
working out since 2020 every day. So you
yeah
can say like fitness and a good and healthy diet. That is one of my areas of interest, and my family hates me for it.
mm,
So I am enrolled into classes as well for the same. So every day on a daily basis, I work out. That involves yoga, strength training, and everything. So that is one area of interest of mine, fitness and everything. Second area of interest would be writing, something that I share in common with you, but I'm not as prolific in. So I used to write very simple like blogs and stuff where back in
mm,
college. I have not had the time to do that ever since I stepped into work. But I still try to lift a pen sometimes and pen down a couple of things. And if everything goes well, then maybe I'll be able to structure things around how my life has panned out post visual impairment and how much I have learned by interacting with the community so far, eventually, someday.
yeah
That is one area of interest. These were the few areas of interest that I could stay in so far. I have been exploring other areas of interest over the past few years. Some areas that I did not think that I could do something in. For example, a couple of years back, I tried swimming as well, and I picked it up at a good enough pace. I would
mm,
still say, if you put me into water, I might, I might be able to swim for some time, but eventually, since I cannot breathe, I have not learned the breathing aspect of it properly, so I'll drown.
yeah
So I want to pick up one kind of a sport, actually, eventually in the long run, any one sport.
mm,
So that's how
that is
those are my some very basic areas of interest.
and yeah, okay. Since it's like only half an hour, so I need to fill this with other things also. So, okay, um, talking about the broader politics, right? Um, because we are in a time where things are closing and economy is not very it has become competitive and US has kind of imposed some of the changes which has led to countries reacting in certain way. So where you see the narrative of inclusion and disability in that actually?
Um, so one thing that I have realized that though Donald Trump has said that he is going to take off DEI, the laws that are present within the United States of America are pretty strong and they cannot be overhauled at a minute's notice.
Hmm.
Right. So even if DI is not there, other things will be there in some way or the other within America.
Yeah.
As you had mentioned last day, that ADA is present, which already looks into the architecture of buildings and requires certain buildings to be made accessible.
Yeah. But
Similarly, we
yeah.
also have like web content accessibility guidelines to which America complies heavily by. Right.
Hmm.
So if Donald Trump's government might have an impact, for example, even in my journey and interacting with a lot of people in the past few months, I saw hesitation around DEI hiring. And though I was not a DEI hire, I still saw a lot of hesitation in being hired as a person with visual impairment. But I feel other areas, for example, European countries. Over there, I do not remember the name of the law, but there's this law that is again coming up very soon in June, which is around web content accessibility guidelines, to be followed by countries which follow the euro currency. There's this trade bloc organization that is present. No. So over there, the strength of these accessibility guidelines is gaining traction, as well as in countries like Australia also this law is fairly strong. In Canada as well, it's fairly strong. So US, within US, a little bit of backseat might be present, but within US also, I feel it's not just disability that will take a backseat. There are other things that will be influenced also, because for
mm,
example, the black population might be influenced, women might be impacted negatively because
mm,
how the policy is being framed. So what I
mm,
read is there are certain what do you call it, subsidies provided for caregiving. Originally, there were subsidies provided for caregiving, and whatever the policies are, though they are encouraging women to get to the workforce, one area that is being neglected is the subsidies that are provided for caregiving, and they are
mm.
trying to incentivize people to have more than one children. Right.
Yeah.
But to have more than one children, you need more caregiving facilities that are present, which is a common feature of Scandinavian countries. So since they are
Mm,
not subsidizing caregiving, usually what happens, the burden will start going off into to the parents, to one of the parents to stay back at home. And historically, that one parent that has been is the woman. So that is what might happen because of the policies that are being instituted right now.
yeah, and the thing is, again, talking about the thing is that sometimes, when we talk about disability per se, lot of the policies are there, but there is always a question of, does it make economic sense, right? Because a lot of the things we demand is sometimes, requires investment or something like that. But so how we you think that we can balance that thing? It's not something coming out of welfare. It's coming something. It's that it can be, articulated in a way which is like much more uh, value driven, not from a not from a what welfare approach. Like as you said, are the return for investment ROI. They they have this place that if they are investing this much money, the community has to like give that much. So, what is
So
your
I
opinion on that?
feel that first of all, the return on investment part, the word investment needs to be defined, and it's not necessarily in
Yeah.
monetary terms all the time, right? So as you had mentioned last time, there's a concept called externality that is present, which used to say that if you have, say, there's this one person from a village that is receiving a very good education, and he comes back to the village, what will
Mm,
happen? There will be an externality. Number one, he will attract more talent into the village. Number two, he will guide the people who are present in the village to receive better education. And
mm,
number three, a lot of projects and everything might also get driven inside the village. So
mm,
any welfare scheme that is present, that should be designed in such a way that it does not just give monetary returns, it also generates enough externalities so that in the long term, instead of putting in that monetary investment, what happens, something comes out of that externality as well, and some domino effect kind of ensues, and then
correct.
things keep on getting passed on. So there was this
Mm,
book that I had read long back about a person who had lost his eyesight probably when he was 6 or 7 years of age,
mm,
and then he ended up climbing the Mount Everest. Right. So
mm,
he goes off to Tibet to see how, like, people with visual impairment, if they are rehabilitated, what happens. So a lot of these people with visual impairment who were coming, what was happening, no, they were coming from very remote areas. So what they did is they identified that if these people with visual impairment could be of any economic support to these villages, the
mm,
value that these people have in these villages kind of tend to increase. So for example, you are a person with visual impairment, but you are bringing in education plus income. What will happen? The village, first of all, the respect already starts going up. Second thing, you will become a guide to the students of that village. And once that mentor mentee relationship of a lot of respect gets created, na, after that, that person with visual impairment is no more someone who is looked down upon. They are finally like, no, this person is something, they are doing something for the community. So that is what the approach can be, getting the people involved into something which is so meaningful to the community that their position in the community just cannot be doubted.
Hmm.
So that might not pay off very extra, like a lot in monetary
Yeah,
sense, but that will be very important for the community.
correct. Yeah, because the thing is that again, because explaining this, because disabilities movement in like America also was a product of the time. So a lot of civil rights movement was coming in, and then it joined in. Actually, disability movement joined in the civil rights movement, and sort of it had a particular structure and particular ideology to it. But now, like 20 years from now, uh, from then, actually, it has the need and the specific things has changed actually dramatically, because the policies are there, but again, when it comes to implementation and when it comes to documentation and research, our community is actually lagging behind, like compared to any other sector, I would say.
Mm-hmm. The data for disability is also very inadequate.
Yeah, and for that, I think what we also require is that sometimes we need to also have differentiated approach. Like for example, this is my opinion. You might have your own opinion that lot of people have this tendency of if you are in a disability sector, you are actually covering a lot of things. Like if I'm a disability like advocate, I'll speak about everything. But what we need is that we need specific expert, like domain expertise, where they can like articulate in their particular like domain, and then approach it in a way which is much more structured rather than everybody is trying to do everything.
Mm-hmm. So you might be more aware of the this part because you have worked within the social sector for a considerable amount of
Yeah,
time, and
yeah,
so like you have met a lot of people, I would say. So you
yeah,
would know that whether they are domain experts or not domain experts, and if
yeah,
they have their hands in too many boats.
yeah, yeah. And the thing is that yeah, because since you also like have a specific orientation towards economics, and you have like if you're not in the economics just for the sake that you're putting your disability identity like forward. You are talking about a larger, and you are thinking that how do you have a insight on the larger domain rather than playing a like representational role kind of. And this is the most sad part of DEI, because most of the heading was done for ornamental thing,
Yes, yes, that is
and that
true.
led to backfire from the company, because they couldn't like
Hmm.
see the value of it, and then it was like easy to like dismiss.
Hmm. So,
But
like, it's like one thing that needs to be understood when you're doing why DEI hiring is important is that people with disabilities do not just have a problem, do not just
yeah,
face challenges within the job.
mm,
In acquiring whatever academic qualifications that they had to encounter a lot of challenges. For example, when I was diagnosed, one thing that just went into the trash can was the idea of me traveling to various cities. So while a lot of people would go to different study cities to receive education, I was confined to my own cities, and I could just explore what was the best in my cities. And I feel for education, you do need to travel a lot. Right. And the second thing was,
correct.
while my sighted friends could easily get internships, I could not easily get those internships because number one, I was not socializing enough because I had this idea in my head that I am a person with disability. I have a problem in going out at night and I do not know how to ask for assistance. So
Hmm.
I cannot build a so I had trouble building network, first of all. Second
Correct.
thing, within my class itself, people had no idea that I had gotten into the college not because of my disability. I was a general category selection, and it was entirely on a merit base, so I was as capable as they were. Right,
Hmm.
but that did not get translated to them. All they thought that isko to bas mil gaya hai because she probably had a
Because
certain.
there are a lot of assumptions that happened with me with in this also, but that was exactly the case. Yeah.
Right. So those, so if you do not get internships, then within the job they will question that you do not have experience. What do we put you into? So what
Yeah.
happens? You get into stuck into a cycle of you do not have experience. We cannot give you a job. For a job, we need experience. So you keep getting stuck in this cycle.
Yes. Sometimes, what I felt that because even I have faced issue because I would not blame them because they have their own structure in place, and you have to fit in it, no doubt.
Hmm.
Because no matter how much you think that sometimes what I feel like we also have this uh, thing because because our disability is also sometimes too much to handle, right? So sometimes we feel that okay, it is the job of the other side to understand us, but sometimes it is very important to communicate our needs also in
Yes,
a way
yes.
which they understand.
You eventually realize that it is kind of your responsibility as well to articulate and communicate properly as to what are your needs and how you work and everything. And this is something that I actually learned gradually.
Mm. That is very yeah. And also, like, since you are a late blind person, so you might have a very different approach. Like for example, I like my disability was quite uh, from early age. So I would say that my understanding, my thing was actually I accepted my disability very early on. But how was your like journey like in accepting
So,
the disability?
acceptance wise, I guess I accepted my condition within an year or two. I had understood that this is going to go and this is something that I cannot stop. So, it is something beyond my control. What was more
Mm.
difficult was getting people around me to accept that this is going to go and you cannot help this,
Yeah.
irrespective of how hard you try, irrespective of how much I put a restraint on the amount of things I read or anything. So the first thing that comes when you start having vision loss is that you should not read as much, you should not study as much, you lose your vision and everything. That is one thing that comes up. So that is one that came up. The second would be you should not choose a particular stream because it would put a lot of strain into your eyes. So, for example, if you are a person with visual impairment and you are a person who has an established form of visual impairment, that okay, she's blind and she's totally blind, and then you take up
Mhm.
economics. Number one, you would have things sorted out for yourself that these are the resources I would be
Mm.
using. The second thing that you do have is people around you kind of start accepting, okay, she has this condition, she has taken it up, she has the resources. But when you have late blind, and particularly in my case, since my case was not like you suddenly lose vision, you lose vision over a period of time, right?
Mm.
So every day is coping up with this loss, every
With
6 months, every
new
month
kind
is
of challenge and new kind of coping up. It's like
exactly. So one day, if I can see from the fourth bench, the other after a few months, I will be not able to even see from the first bench. That is the kind
yeah.
of experience I had. So
Yeah.
people saw me in one form a few months back, another form a few months later, and they would be like, "Oh my God, what is happening?"
Mm.
Right. So
And
that was the difficult part.
yeah, I mean, and also that also depends on the individual, um, like mindset also. Because once if you are like as I have interacted, you are much more process oriented than going by the flow actually. What I have interacted with you, so that helps actually with getting adjusted to new kind of challenges because you would process and you would like think rationally then going by the emotional factors.
Hmm.
So how was your family response to this actually, your
Um,
disability?
That has been quite a journey. So,
Yeah.
my mother came to terms with it early on that I am going to eventually lose vision. So, the day I howled at home, na, I can never be a doctor. She was the one. She said, "So what?" She had this approach.
Mm-hmm.
So what? And then she has always been like, you will be independent irrespective of whatever. Even in my house, my father had a hard time in accepting things because, again, father daughter relationship, fathers are usually close to their daughter, and he was very close to my like, what do you call it, a passion for becoming what I wanted to become back at that time. And so he would, for example, I would kind of tend to hide things. Like, I would not tell him that I cannot see stones nearby or buckets nearby, so that he would just let me go to college. Otherwise, he would be so concerned that I felt like I would be home confined. Then he would be like, "Don't go into the kitchen." He would not let me pick up heavy objects. Now they have come into terms with it, though they are still skeptical about me going into the kitchen and trying to cook. So that is something
Cool.
that I really want to try. So
So do
what?
you cook after like your vision loss?
Little bit, yes. I cook
Yeah.
very basic stuff. Recently, I cooked rice.
Yeah. That
So,
is that
little
is
bit.
very, yeah.
Yeah. I actually have to find the kitchen to be empty. Like, my mother and father are not around, so that I can
Yeah.
stealthily cook things in the kitchen.
And do you like your vision is like how much percentage is your like vision loss is like?
It's 5 to 10% vision remaining right now. I cannot
Okay.
move without a white cane in familiar places. With
Mm,
respect to the computer screen, I use screen readers. Screen readers are softwares that speak or give braille commands based on certain commands. So I
mm,
primarily rely on audio. I use that. I have a little bit of sight as well, and sometimes occasionally I can see a couple of things on the screen, and I use
mm,
that residual vision sometimes, but it is not
mm,
very reliable form of vision. And with my phone also, I use screen readers on my phone, talkback, since my phone is an Android one, and I have all the adaptations that a blind person has, like navigating via touch, navigating using sound. Those things
yeah.
are my adaptations right now.
Yeah, means this is very important. Like, and like it is like, for example, like when we talk about disability, it's a broad category, but when it comes to like visual impairment community, it is like lot of technological interventions are there.
Yes,
Actually,
yes,
if
yes,
they utilize that thing, actually their
yes.
life is sorted out pretty much. Actually,
I think technology has benefited the visually impaired people the most. Even a few days back, TalkBack had some updates,
yeah,
and within the updates, what happened earlier? You just had describe image. Now you have a describe screen feature as well. So the maximum advantage if a community can have, that is people like us, people with visual impairment.
yeah, and in terms of like getting the getting into the mainstream, I've seen people with visual impairment has gone into like top corporates and things like that. Lawyers, you see a lot of because again, I would say that when it comes to other communities, a lot of issues are there because, like for example, I'm talking about from my experience, like wheelchair users or like locomotor issue, they need a lot of infrastructure changes, and that leads to a lot of cost to the company sometimes, and that is one
So,
of the thing where yeah, yeah,
so to be honest, like within visually impaired community as well, I will see the people who are at the
mm,
upper level, no, like they already had a decent income and good amount of like parental income and everything. They have
yeah,
actually made it up higher on the corporate ladder
higher
as
up,
compared to people on the middle or lower income categories.
correct,
Because visually, as you know, visual impairment requires technological intervention more. So they
yeah,
would come in contact with computers, and they would come in contact with smartphones which have talkbacks within them way early on as compared to
barely
people
on,
who are in the lower or middle income
yeah,
categories. So also, but one thing that can be said is that yes, there's a lot of advocacy and everything going on from our community's side, so that we can push people into the like the higher categories within visually impaired community as well. People who are low vision, they get a higher preference as compared to people who are totally blind. Totally blind
mm,
people still yet have to go through a lot of screening, discrimination
yeah.
and everything in order to get somewhere.
And when I was in field also, I realized those like in the rural areas, if you are visually impaired, actually you are one. Actually, you are actually not very well off, because again they don't have the access to technology and they don't get the chance to that upward movement in that way. And
Exactly, exactly.
so yeah, you're correct in that way, because and I've seen like this differential situation, because like for example in rural areas I've seen locomotor disability community, they have actually ramped up, and they are quite included in the discourse of disability, and they are much more active
Yes.
compared to visual. But when
Hmm.
it comes to higher up, as you said, it is the visually impaired who gets much more interaction if they are having that technological aid.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, so the main challenge is that key to understand the diversity of the needs, the disability community needs, depending on the, and that is one of the reason why our the the single voice that have a common minimal you know agenda that has taken a long time, because it was like in 1995 only, like we got our like act together and got the legislation, and now 116. So still I'm in the implementation part also, because legislation is one thing, but having a implementation is another thing altogether, because we are having 21 disability also.
Hmm.
So
And
and
one more thing that you will observe from within the visually impaired community is that people usually go for there are certain MNCs which are based properly out of India, and there are certain MNCs that are based out of other countries. So you will find people who are with visual impairment working in MNCs that are based out of other countries because they have stronger laws for like people with disabilities as compared to the MNCs that are present in India. The good news is that these MNCs also are coming to terms with the idea of disability rights inclusion, and then they are gradually taking in people with visual impairment. So I would say within a lot of other MNCs, foreign MNCs, what happens is that the push is through DEI. Within India, one thing positive would be people are actually looking at, okay, these people can actually contribute, and that instead of the DEI push, the push of like, no, these people deserve it kind of is a push. So that might be taken in a positive way.
yeah, yeah, that is very important. And yeah, again, talking about from like, see, and sometimes what I feel that we as an individual or any person also get biased with our individualistic need and requirements, and
Yes.
how to build a broader consensus and see a broader thing, scheme of things. It is a challenge for the community also, because the thing is that most of the other communities, like women, talking about the other, they have like common problems and common things. But disability community, when it comes, we have a lot of like different and sometimes conflicting needs. So
Yes.
that also requires a lot of deliberation and understanding, and
I guess we need to find a common ground. For example, last year as we were discussing and you had mentioned is that you
yeah.
have difficulty in navigating on tough terrain, and that is something that even I face because with
Mhm.
my case it is very difficult to understand a harder an
Done.
uneven terrain like it is with you. So maybe we need to understand that common ground so that we can make one small cause into a wider cause and then push for it.
Mm. Yeah, and see, and what we have seen that actually, particularly after COVID, I have seen that a lot of organizations have started showing interest in the disability sector, because of the fact that the other sectors are already, a lot of intervention has been done, and this sector has actually not got the intervention it needs. So we see a lot of funding and things like coming, but it is very important to capitalize on the opportunity we are getting right now, because uh, other other organizations and broader schemes are aligning, But again, I would say that we need to also ramp up our we have to like navigate and change our strategy
Hmm.
also, like RPWD Act legislation problem that was a different
Hmm.
time, and that require different kind of education, and that have actually now it is 20 years now the line. Now we have to actually do much more, professional, and the hard work which requires uh, data gathering and also documentation of the impacts it's having, rather than having a more narrative oriented, individualistic stories
What
where
I feel like we have entered, now we need to grow. The
yeah,
entry barriers have been like
yeah,
dismantled. Now the we need to build our first floor, second floor, and third floor.
correct. That is very important. Even one of my friend was saying that we need to have uh, like a first stage of the things, second stage of things, and then where you basically grow out of the thing. But thing is that I understand that when if we think disability as one of the isolated group, then it is actually much more difficult. But if we see a broader alliance with other movements or groups, it is much more easier to have a
Right.
common. So
Right.
for that we need to also look beyond disability. And
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah, and as I said,
One One thing that I have been thinking about is that this is also being talked about a lot, is that since life expectancy is increasing across India and across the world, we need to know that the number of people above 60 are also increasing. Right. And since the number of people above 60 are increasing, the number of people who are elderly is increasing, and the number of people who are elderly with disabilities is also increasing. Right. And in the future as well, it is said that right now India's demographic dividend is increasing, but later on, what will happen? The number of young people to old people, the ratio is going to fall down, and we will have less younger people caring for the old. And when that time comes, what will be important is accessibility and DEI, because now these people who are old, who they need resources so that they can care for themselves, they can lead a life as independent and as dignified as possible, and this is what can be clubbed alongside DI.
yeah, yeah, that broader framework has to be followed, because again, and as I said, see, disability is one of the identity we actually are
Embody.
embodied. It can't be the entire thing. We have a lot of other things. We have a lot of other identity also does, but also the thing is that it depends on person to person. Some people might feel more attached to their disability identity, so we should not also assume this is the way. But again, there is the thing is that now we have got into this fray, and so we need to develop more like-minded people, and we need to ramp up our issues, and think in a way which is much more creative rather than just you know rhetoric. Moving out of the rhetoric, that is very important. Yeah.
Right.
So it was good talking to you. Now it's like almost 1 hour. I think I might have missed some of the things, but I feel that we can have more conversation later on, and think how we can build this community and this interaction in much more
Definitely. Yeah.
fruitful
It
way.
has been a learning for me every day as I interact with you, and so has this today's session been as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
1 second. Just yes.